Denver.
He's what?
He's in Denver.
Right. Yeah, we said that.
All right. We got some issues taken care of. You guys were getting a unexpected shower right there where we were sitting. So
I mean, we were about to start the interview, and it literally started raining inside the house, and we didn't know what was happening.
No, I hey, nothing better than a little adrenaline to get things going, right? So happy to have you.
Definitely worked off some calories going up and down those stairs.
I know. I saw you going up the stairs 100 times. So
I do have my workout pants on right now, so I was all set.
Well, thank you for being here. This is Marketer Brothers, Ricardo Salguero, and what city are you in?
We're in Coconut Creek, Florida.
Coconut Creek, Florida. I'm Carlos Salguero here in Denver, Colorado. We're with a very, very special guest today, Joanne Roy Young from a foundation called A Spring of Hope, and you're going to tell us all about it and tell us your story and how you got started and your mission and vision for the future. We're so thankful to have you on our channel, Joanne, and get to know you, me for the first time. I know Ricardo has been working with you for a little while already, but please tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started with the foundation, and then we can dive into more details a little later. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. A Spring of Hope was actually started by my daughter when she was 14 years old after a trip to South Africa. I'm going to give you the short story, otherwise we'll be here for 2 hours. So the short story is we went there to see the animals, and we were staying at a very, very nice lodge, and I wanted her to see more than being in that lodge. And so we asked the people where we were staying to bring us to a local school. They hired a gentleman and his wife. His wife was an American, he was South African, and they took us to Beretta Primary School to see what rural life was like in this part of South Africa. And I had traveled a lot, my daughter not so much. I had seen poverty in many parts of the world. But so we went to what was a government school, and it was a primary school, and there were 1,400 kids there. This is 2005. And the school, it was very hard for me to go into these classrooms. You had classrooms that were, pretty small, and kids, you had maybe 100 kids in the classroom. It was difficult as a mom to see that. But there was also a lot of joy to be seen there too. The kids were extremely happy, and my 14-year-old reminded me of that and said, "Mom, come back inside." Every time I walked outside because I was too sad, she said, "Come on back in and just see the kids, and they're happy." And so I did, and we spent the day there. And as we were with the principal most of the day, and as we were leaving, we looked at their gardens, and their gardens were just dying. I mean, everything, the tomatoes were drooping, everything. And I said to our guide, I said, "Why don't they just, water it?" And he looked at me and he said, they don't have any water. I'm like, "What do you mean?" So I was pretty naive. Yeah. And I said, "Well, what happens?" And he says, "Well, the government, they had a big tank, and on the side of the tank it said JoJo. And growing up, my name is Joanne, but growing up my nickname was JoJo, so it caught my eye." Okay. And I said, "So what's the deal with that?" And he said, "Occasionally the government will bring them water, and with that many kids, within a day and a half, that water is completely gone." Wow. So again, back to the principal, I told her that in the States, when we have kids who are in elementary school, we have something called a wish list. And what would happen is the parents would get together and fundraise for whatever the kids needed for that classroom. And so I said to Lynette, the principal, I said, "If you could have anything in the world for your students, what would you want?" And she said, "Water." Wow. And it was really, it was sad, and it was beautiful. I mean, she said that's what she wants. She wants water for her students. So that night we went back to the lodge we were staying at, and I'm a Snoopy mom. So my daughter got on, and this is 2005, so we're talking 14 years ago, and instant messaging. Do you remember that, guys?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
She got on the computer at the lodge, and I'm standing behind her, and she typed into one of her friends back in the States. She said, "What I saw today will change me for the rest of my life." And I thought, it's pretty profound for a 14-year-old. So we went back to the room, and we sat down, and we discussed what we saw that afternoon. And she said to me, "Mommy, we need to help those kids." And I said, sweetie, we're 8,000 miles away. I don't know, exactly what we could do.
Yeah.
And so we kind of left it at that until we got back home. And when we did get back to the States, she had a lot of video at the time. She's 14 and she was very much into video equipment and doing movies with her friends. And that was what she enjoyed. And quite a bit of footage. And when we got home, we talked with her dad and we told him about the conditions we had seen. And we came up with an idea that, okay, why don't you're starting freshman year at a private school. You've got all this video footage. Why don't you talk to your friends? Maybe you guys can do some type of fundraising. And we told her, whatever you raise, we'll match it. So in a few months, 4 months time, actually, she raised $5,000. So my husband and I matched it. Remember the guy we told you about, right? Back in South Africa, the guide, we sent him and his wife $10,000 US. And there was just something about these people, and you think, why would you send people you don't know, that kind of money? Well, there was something about them that we thought, these are good people, and we trusted them. And he was kind of an interesting guy because he did what was called water witching or water divining. I don't know if you guys know about this. So that's basically where you take sticks or some kind of rods and you walk around for water.
I've seen it in the movies.
And it, what's really funny about that, it does, because, and growing up, I grew up in Massachusetts, and I remember we had a house on the lake, and my grandfather, I remember him doing it with 2 sticks. So I was kind of, but I also, science also, I'm thinking, no, that probably doesn't work. But nonetheless, he said he would go and divine at the school, and he did. And he couldn't find anything there. There was no water to be had, he said. They had actually drilled there twice, and they couldn't find water. So a few weeks later, I get an email from him, and he says that he found another spot down the road, and it looks like it's going to be perfect. It's got the right trees. The topography is correct. Everything about it was conducive for a good source of water. Problem was, we didn't know who owned the land. And this, I love this part of the story. So I don't think anything's a coincidence, by the way.
Never. No.
Yeah, so he starts asking around in the village there who owns this piece of land, and it just happened to be the principal of the school we're trying to help.
Oh wow.
So he tells Lynette, hey, I think this is a great place, and Joanne and Brittany want to drill here, and we've got the funding, and so she actually, I have a piece of paper somewhere, and I'm sure it would not hold up in court of law, but it's basically she deeded over that piece of land to the Beretta Primary School. So long after she's gone, those kids will always have water.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow.
Right. So we drilled. We actually drilled twice there. The first time we drilled, we didn't get quite enough water, and it had to be piped back almost a quarter of a mile where the school was. It wasn't that close. So we drilled again, and we hit, I don't know, I think we were getting something like 4,000 liters an hour, which is huge. And we piped the water back to the school. And for the first time, we started getting emails. Kids were getting drinks. They were out there playing soccer. They ran over, got water.
Wow.
Months later, we start seeing the gardens. It was like total transformation.
Yes.
And I thought, that's the end of this, right?
Yeah, no, not by a long shot.
Yeah. That was fun, right?
This is great. They got water. We kept our promise. We told them we'd help. We'd do what we could. And we decided, not me, my daughter decided that she wanted to go back to South Africa. And I had said to her, no, that's like a once in a lifetime trip. People don't go back to South Africa, right? It's like you do it once and that's it. You go on safari and all that. So she did talk me into going back a year and a half later, and we took some high school kids. And that was the beginning of what we did for the next 3 years while she was in high school. And even after college, we took some college kids back with us. So for the next 6 years, we ended up going back to South Africa. But that second trip was important because when we went there, the kids, remember I told you they were all into video, or she was into video, but her friends were into that. We took a video class from her private school, and they filmed a documentary on the changes of that school. And then when the kids came back, and right where I'm sitting right now, and right where Ricardo's sitting, the kids, we were right here, and the kids decided that they wanted to do another boreholes, what they're called in South Africa, wells. And I said, no, wait. And they talked me into it. I called our attorney because there's a lot of paperwork that has to be done. So starting a nonprofit is not easy, but it can be done. And we thought this was probably the best way to go for us because we were going to ask, people for donations, and those people definitely wanted a tax write-off for that. Yeah. So we started the foundation in 2007. We became a nonprofit, a 501c3 in the United States. And I basically didn't do too much. The kids were on the board. We had a board of directors. They were basically kids. We had a couple of people who were adults, myself included, that kind of advised the kids. But we were pretty small. The kids would do fundraisers, like, you know, Brittany had a lot of pictures. She sold pictures. They did bake sales, car washes, things like that. And then I think it was 2010, so about 3 years after the foundation was started, Brittany wrote a letter to the local Rotary Club here, Rotary Fort Lauderdale, and told them about her project. And Rotary back then was just beginning to get into water projects, what they ended up calling WASH, which is water and sanitation and hygiene, was big on Rotary's list. So that was just happening with them, and they really, you know, were interested in what we were doing on a, you know, on a local level here, on a grassroots level in South Africa. And they invited her to come speak. And she was, I think she was 15 or 15 and a half at the time. She went to the Rotary and she was just blew them away, telling the story. And they said, we're going to give you all our money from now on. And over the years, they've given us well over $100,000 for projects that, you know, that we've done with them. And in fact, right now, one of the reasons I'm back in South Florida is I'm with Boca Raton Rotary, and we're writing a global grant for $100,000 to do some sanitation and one borehole project.
Wow.
So what happened with the Spring of Hope is we went there year after year, and we just kind of started getting larger and larger. And then we started branching out. The schools we noticed the schools would all help each other. So if one had knowledge of something, they would bring in the other ones. And mostly it was gardening. So gardening was certainly a really interesting outtake of, you know, what we're doing with the water. You know, absolutely, let's grow some vegetables. And the gardens in some of these schools were incredible.
Wow.
And then once that started happening, we looked at sanitation. So a Spring of Hope today, in 2019, has 50 schools. We've helped 50 schools, which, you know, we've grown considerably, but we branched out, and we not only do wells, we do permaculture gardening, and we also do waterless sanitation. So we partner with a company called Enviroloo, and we put in toilets that do not require water.
Wow.
So yeah, so we've really grown over the years. You know, I met Ricardo last year
at the fundraiser for So we have a mutual friend, Charmaine Johnson. She's an amazing lady, and she owns a dentistry office called Premier Smile Center, and she's my dentist. So my kids go to the same school as her, and she invited me to this fundraiser, and to be honest, I blew her off the first couple years, you know, of another fundraiser, you know.
Here we go again.
Here we go again, and you know, finally I gave in and came in, and Chad, your husband, was there last year, and so he told us his story and everything, and to be honest, I was moved, you know, and I approached Chad after his speech, and I told him, listen, I want to help, but I want to help in whatever I can, you know. So we met, we spoke to each other. I'm into fitness, so I started by creating a sit-up challenge for Water Day. So in May, for our audience, get ready, because in March we're doing another sit-up challenge, and we're going to raise another. We were fortunate enough that we were able to raise $7,000 through the sit-up challenge. People were just committing and paying $20 to do to actually do 100 sit-ups a day. And basically we were able, it was successful. We spoke, and we've been working together ever since. And through our efforts, we were able to actually triple the amount of donations we got in this year's fundraiser.
Yeah, what did you raise this year?
This year was 40 grand.
Nice.
40 grand. So
thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So it was awesome, and I want to do more. So as soon as we started this project with you, I thought, you know, we got to get Spring of Hope's word out there. We got to get more people involved and more people donating, helping. I mean, anything counts. And you know, I love what you guys are doing. You know, you've taken your skills and your knowledge, and that's it. Share the knowledge. And Lynette, the principal from Beretta School, that's basically her motto. Share the knowledge. So if we know something, it's not important to us anymore. We already know it. The thing is to give that to someone else. And you guys being entrepreneurs,
and giving that knowledge of other people to how to start a business. You know, I talk to other smaller nonprofits, and we are now, and there's actually a girl I met a few years ago. I never actually met her. I talked to her on the phone, and she has a water project, water wells in Uganda. And she called me and she's like struggling with, you know, getting funding. And I said, trust me, I know how difficult it is.
Oh, yeah.
It's really tough. And I said, but you know, you go there so much. I said, why don't you do this? And I did this the first years. I did a little gala, and I was in Washington, D.C., and I went to the embassy. I went to the South African embassy, and I'm like, these ambassadors, that's what they do. They just schmooze with people. That's their job. I went there and I told them a little bit of Spring of Hope. This is, let's see, when did I do the first one? 2004. So 5 years ago.
Okay.
5 years ago, I went there and I said to him, I said, so I'm a water charity. I told him my story, like I just told you what happened from our visit there. And I said, so we're going to do a little gala in Boca Raton. You know, do you think you could come down? And he said, sure. And so we put him in for the day, spent the night. He went to our gala. We raised $100,000. He was a really cool guy. His story was he had been in prison with Nelson Mandela. So that was awesome. Yeah. And then the following year I did gala number 2. In gala number 2, I had some contacts. I'd been going to South Africa for many years, and I had a friend who knew somebody, and they were good friends with Maki Mandela, who is Nelson Mandela's oldest daughter. And we invited her. I learned from this. Okay. So the thing was, wow, this is going to be cool. I got Maki Mandela coming. I think I'm going to sell tons of tickets, right? Well, if I had to do that gala all over again, I would have either put it in Miami or I would have probably want to do it in New York City. Boca Raton was not the venue that was buying those tickets. People came. We did again another $100,000 in donations, but those were mostly friends that had bought tables, regardless who was speaking. But it was really cool. I mean, I'm friends with her now, and it's really great to have met her and heard her story, about her dad. So that was pretty good. But what changed for us, and this again is let's talk business, because really any kind of charity is business.
Yes.
Really a business, and you need to run it like a business. I in the beginning was not really hands-on with it. I let the kids do it because it was their thing. Once my daughter went off to undergraduate, to college, I took it over, and I did the galas because I thought this is a good way to raise money, and I absolutely hated every moment of it. It's not my thing. I'd much rather have my sneakers on and my workout pants and wearing the gowns and schmoozing with people. I really hate asking people for money. Hate it.
Yeah.
So we did the 2 galas, and then while we were doing the galas, I met a really cool guy. His name is Neil Saffer, and he's with Saffer Auction House here in Boca Raton. And him and I talked, and everybody has different auction items, and of course one of them we had was a trip to South Africa. And again, contacts there, I was able to put together a trip. But also during that time, I had also purchased a home in South Africa, and not knowing what I was going to do with this home or lodge, because it wasn't a game reserve with all the wild animals. Neil and I talked about it, and he said, perhaps what we do with it is maybe auction it off. I thought, okay. So the first year we did, and in baby steps and lots of mistakes, right? Because you learn, right?
That's how you learn.
That's right.
How you learn. Successful businesses, probably the most successful businesses, I'm going to say, make a lot of mistakes because they learn from those mistakes on how to do it right.
Yes.
Anyway, so we started donating. What I did is I would donate. I bought the house. I donated it to Spring of Hope, and then Spring of Hope would partner with, say, Boys and Girls Club in Fort Lauderdale, or the YMCA. South Florida has more charitable events, I think, than anywhere in the world. Palm Beach County, I think there's a charitable event every day of the week. I swear.
Wow.
Lots of different, whether they're saving cats or dogs or kids or whatever the cause could be. They're here in South Florida, and Neil is a part of that whole. That whole group.
Circle, yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. So anyway, so we started with the first year, and we made lots of mistakes with the package. I had it for 2 people. I didn't have a chef there, but we sort of gave them breakfast. Maybe it was a little bed and breakfast thing. We didn't know. And then the following year we did it again, and people started asking us, can we have a chef? And I didn't know. I'm like, I guess. So I call my friends in South Africa, and I get this woman, and she's Indian, right? And all she makes is curry. So you get curry for breakfast, curry for lunch, and no, this isn't going to work. So then the following year, we sold a few more, and I actually hired a chef. I went on to Indeed. I think I went on Indeed.
Yeah.
I hired this kid, and he's a really nice kid. He seemed like a nice kid, and people came back and said, food was good. you know, he was a nice kid, except it wasn't. He had some issues, and I'm not going to get into that, and I had to let him go. So I then, the next time I said, you know, chefs, this is tough. Because without a good chef, I really don't have much. So I went to an agency in Cape Town, and they actually are a catering company, and then they have this side business that is hiring chefs. And a lot of the people they hire go into like Dubai, into that area of the world, and so they're very, very high end chefs. And we ended up hiring this one guy, and he was great. And all the guests come back, oh, we love this guy, and he was there maybe 2 months.
Nice.
He calls me and he says, and I'm sitting on the beach in Florida, by the way. I'm on the beach, I'm like relaxing, everything's good. I get a phone call, and he says, I really didn't want to make this call. You know, I love A Spring of Hope. I love what you're doing. He said, but I got an offer he was going to Nigeria, and they offered him like $85,000 a year. I couldn't pay him $85,000 a year to be shot.
Right.
I said, I completely understand. I went back to that agency. And the reason I used the agency, I got smart that time, was because something like this might happen. And so in the contract with them, I said, what happens if my chef just leaves one day? I can't run over there to cook.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, we'll get a chef right in there. We'll fly him in from Cape Town. Don't worry. And that's exactly what happened. He gave us basically a week and a half notice. They flew in some relief chefs. And then we started interviewing again. We found this great woman. I said, I had 2 men chefs, nothing against you guys, right?
Yeah.
Nothing against me. Love men. But I had 2 men that were chefs. So I told the recruiter, I said, I want a woman this time. And she said, okay. And she found this girl she was in Uganda, and she had worked with her for many, many, many years. And she was up there working with a big lodge up there, but the lodge was also tied to some environmental non-charity, and she got to go in the village all the time and be with the children. And when she contacted us, she said, the main thing was, she says, I love what you do. Not about the hospitality business, but about the charity.
Yes.
She's been with us now. Her name is Liesl, and Liesl is an absolutely fantastic cook. She's an artist. She's an artist with her food. You don't want to eat it. You look at it and go, I'm not touching that. It's so gorgeous.
You know, people that are listening right now, they need to go to the website of Tulani and,
right. Oh, yeah, so the house is called Tulani.
And see the resort and see the house and see the pictures of the food. I was looking at the pictures of the food, and I'm getting hungry here, right? It's beautiful.
So what happened with that is, as we're going into year 4 now, we sell about 100 packages a year. So what happens is, so my business model for that was, so there's a donation that goes to A Spring of Hope, not to me, directly to A Spring of Hope from that foundation. So let's just say they sell the package, it's a $10,000. The least it's gone for in all the years we've been doing it is $8,000. Wow. So of that $8,000, A Spring of Hope for this year is taking $3,500. So whatever's left over goes to that charity. They don't have to do anything for that. It's just, it's just donation to them. It has gone for as much as $25,000. It's incredible. And Neil doesn't sell usually one package. He'll sell 3, 4.
Multiples.
About a month ago, he was in Indiana at a new charity up there. It's called Premier Arts. And they sold 6 packages. And they're just thrilled.
Neil's amazing. Neil's amazing. He can sell,
anything.
He can sell ice to an Eskimo.
Yeah.
If
he doesn't, and we always say,
he doesn't sell it. He actually buys it himself. It's so
yeah.
funny. He's like, he's selling it. He's like, no bidders. And his wife is like, sold. He's like, he buy it himself.
I'm like, who bought that? She goes, I wanted to go. She says, they bought a thing to Key West. From the function you were doing. Yeah, it was really great. So we're going to move over here because the
sun is in her face.
It started getting outside. Yeah.
No, that's so amazing, Joanne. It's fascinating to listen to the story because from one trip, one experience, your daughter gets this passion and this inspiration that then carries over to you. You give her the support, and what I think it's amazing. Ricardo and I come from Ecuador, which is a third world country, and we've seen poverty ourselves since we were little. I mean, we were fortunate to grow up in a family where our parents worked really hard and gave us a great life. But over there. But we've seen it. So having that perspective. So your daughter travels to South Africa with you, in one trip gets that perspective, right? And of course, her heart is calling her to go and provide something that we all take for granted every day, right? Running water. Right. It's like drinking water and even water for plants. You know, that's something that doesn't even cross our mind.
No, we just go turn the faucet on and it's there. And
yes.
Like electricity, same thing. You know, we flip the switch. And
exactly.
And we don't realize that so much of the world does not have these conveniences.
Yeah, and I can tell water follows you because you almost took a shower from your AC unit right now before we started.
He asked for a drink of water. I gave him a drink of water.
No, I literally asked for a drink of water, and Joanne went to the kitchen, and all of a sudden I see all this water coming on top of me, and I'm like,
ceiling opened up.
Is she throwing water at me? Is that what's happening?
It's crazy.
So that air conditioner started leaking. Right. I was like, that's why we were late.
It's a South Florida thing. People that don't know, South Florida is really, really hot here all the time. And we just run our air conditioners and they blow up every now and then. So
no, I bet. So what I was going is like, you were in a position to help. Mm-hmm. And I think that is important so to people know, because, I think we get to a point in our lives, and Ricardo and I are here now, where we spent 20 plus, maybe 30 since we were kids and started businesses. And now we're in a place in our lives where we're going to start giving back in a huge way, alongside with our business ventures. So, you were telling me a little bit earlier before we started the interview about you and your husband starting a business as well. Can you share that a little bit of that? Because I think that puts you in a position that you could run with this and make it a reality.
Without our business back when we started, I'm going to move over a little bit more.
Like
the
sun keeps moving on us.
It's right there. Back in the late 70s, my husband's background was he was working for a office supply company. And he came home one day and he said, I'm going to start my own business. And I said, okay, what you going to do? And he said, I'm going to sell typewriter ribbons. And I'm like, okay. And I go, is there like a big market for that? And he says, yeah, there is actually. He said, so that's what I want to do. And he said, how much money do you have? And I said, I don't know, a couple thousand maybe in the bank. So he wanted to borrow the money. And we at the time we were just living together. We were not married yet. And so he said, can I borrow the money? And like all my friends, like, are you crazy giving him your money? And we laugh about it now, like it's probably one of my best investments. So I let him borrow the money and he started the business. And yes, that's what we sold. We sold typewriter ribbons. So back then it was the Selectric typewriters, and they used to, not only ribbons did we sell, and they were different colors. We sold this thing. And unless you're, let's see, how old, I mean, you guys are.
Oh, we remember.
Younger than
the ones that had the ball, right?
Yeah. They had the ball, and the ball would
hit
and stuff. Yeah, the ball would flip around. And then you have this yellow thing. Stick in there, and it was correction tape.
It was eraser,
and it was eraser.
Yep,
it would pull the mistakes off, and so that's what we sold. And that's the business we started in 1979. And by about 1980, what happened was word processors were coming out. And so information back then was being stored on these big floppy disks. Do you guys remember?
The big ones. Yeah.
They were big. They were huge.
Yeah.
And really, the people had this were big law firms and that they had these secretaries, and they would put all this information. And then after that, what happened is those big floppy disks, as technology increased, they got smaller and smaller. And there was something called floppy disks, which were I think they were called 5 1/4, and then 3.5 inch were the rigid little plastic rigid ones. And that was our business. And we became like the largest supplier of floppy disks in the US.
Wow.
And how that all happened was, obviously lots of hard work, but also luck. So, anybody, and you guys know this as entrepreneurs, timing is everything.
Timing.
Oh, yeah. So
patience.
Patience. Oh yeah. And I had no patience. Thank God my husband had patience, because I was like, oh, can we move? We were in this really crappy place. And I'm like, can we just like get maybe, another apartment? Do we have any money now? And he's like, no, all the money went back into the business. Mm-hmm. In fact, I started the business with him. We worked together and we couldn't pay the rent. So somebody had to go get a job. And because we wanted to give it a chance, we didn't, we always thought here's the worst case. And I can give this advice to people. If you can do it and you're young enough to do it, and we didn't have children yet, nothing, we just had each other. If you can do it, go ahead and try it. Because the absolute worst that happens is you fail. But even if you fail, you gain knowledge from that failure.
Yep.
So, and you go and do something else. So we stayed with it, obviously, and the business started growing, and it went into different avenues, from the floppy disks and you know, what was the other things that started going? I actually retired when I was 30.
Nice.
We had a retirement party for me. It was really great. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to back up a little, because what I was saying was, so in the beginning, the early stages, we didn't have any, the business struggled.
Yes.
And, you know, I had to go get a job. Somebody had to go to work because we had to pay the rent. So that's what I did. And, yeah, it's getting,
you know what, why don't we?
Do you want to go over there? Yeah. Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
We're moving.
We're moving.
In a little bit.
Better?
Yes.
This might be
Yeah.
better. Is that better?
Yeah, it's fine.
Is it worse?
No, it's good. The sun's behind you, but it's fine.
The sun's behind us, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I went and got a job. I worked for Philip Morris Tobacco Company. I sold cigarettes. So this is like the early 80s, and I did this for a while. I think I did it for about a year and a half, and then I went back to work with him. And the business kept growing, and, you know, like I said, branching out into different things depending on what technology was doing. But my husband would say it was a toilet paper business, because you would use it up, right?
Yeah.
And you have to buy it again. So
Consumables.
we weren't in the hardware business, because
Yeah.
once you bought that computer, whatever, you had that for years.
Yeah.
And once you bought that diskette or that printer ribbon, we were also very big into laser printers.
Mm-hmm.
So once you bought that, you used it, you had to go buy it again.
Yeah.
So continually, you know, having, and then we branched out and we started franchising.
Oh,
Nice.
Yeah. So we had, I think in the heyday, I think we had something like 16 franchises.
Nice.
And then we did have a partner. We did have a small shareholder partner that was with us. And he actually did the catalog. We did a catalog back then that we mailed out. So back then you would buy lists, and, you know, nowadays we do everything online, but back then you would buy a list of, let's just say, attorneys.
Yeah.
And you would then send your catalog out to them. And we did that with this one partner of ours. And that became more of our business. We became a mail order business, more or less, right? Because we shipped our product everywhere.
Yeah, that became huge for a long time.
It was really big for a long time. That's, you know, and that's what we did.
It was the internet of those days, if you think about it.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I remember like the first, like AOL and Prodigy. Do you remember Prodigy?
Oh,
you guys
I remember that.
You know, my first job when I actually came to the United States when I was 17. Actually, the first job I ever got was a telemarketing company, and I started it, and then I became trained for catalogs, and I was the guy, you know, with an accent and everything, and I would remember having the headset, getting in a computer, and it would beep, and it was like, "Thank you for calling Nordstrom catalog," whatever, and they would come to order, and you had to go look at the little things, and we would take orders catalog, and that was huge.
And then orders would get fulfilled and shipped out UPS.
Yes.
Yep.
That's how it works.
No, and Joanne, here's something interesting. I don't know if Ricardo has told you this, but when my dad decided to start his business, he was a salesman for NCR.
He did,
right?
Yeah.
And one of my memories from those days, I was still very young, is they would bring home all these little wet naps. Okay, these little wet napkins that you open, and they smell amazing. Okay, you open them, they smell amazing, and that's what they used to use to clean the ink from people's fingers when they would replace those cartridges and those ribbons. Right?
Yep. And then that became another business for somebody, by the way. Those cartridges, they became refillable, those ink cartridges. So some people took up and started a new business just refilling those. Instead of buying new ones, you could get them refilled. So that was really smart of somebody.
Oh, yeah.
To do that.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
So actually, I want to go back to where we were talking before. You know, that because, you know, you were successful in business, and then you had this drive to serve, you know, to give back to others, and we were actually talking right when I came in about the same, and it all comes from our parents. You know, our parents, our father. I remember, you know, we were just talking about this, that remember, Carlos, our father, in Christmas time, we would make these baskets of rice and beans and different canned goods, and he would drive us all over the country. remember he would drive us to our farm and everything, and we would stop in little towns and give it out to different families and stuff for Christmas, and you know, remembering that, you know, it's not what they tell us, right? It's what they do, our parents, and that's what we follow. And Joanne we were talking that her parents do the same thing. You were saying about Santa.
Yeah, my dad, my parents were factory workers. I grew up in Massachusetts, and you know, I did not have any money. Parents were, you know, but they worked for a company, and at Christmas time they had something called the Santa Fund, and my dad was kind of like head of the Santa Fund. Yeah, you can't close those, so unfortunately, no. We might be better off going back over there. Let's go back over there. Let's just move.
We are fighting the sun.
We are moving again. Oh, much better. We look so much better not in that bright light.
You're fighting the elements today.
Yeah. So my dad was the head of the Santa Fund. So the employees would put money together over the year, and then my dad would take that funding and he would go buy toys. And I remember being with my dad on Christmas Eve, going to what we consider it's an interesting thing about it, because my parents didn't have any money, but poor people's homes, because everything's relative, right? Yeah. So these were kind of more of the rural homes. I remember going and looking, and porches were falling down and roofs were caving in. And my dad would bring the presents for the children, and I would go along with him. And I remember thinking how happy these kids are going to be, you know, come tomorrow morning, because there's gifts out there on the front porch.
Yes.
And you know, and that really, I guess, I mean, at the time, I'm just thinking this is nice, and these kids are going to be happy. I'm 8 years old, but you know, years later, when I'm in South Africa, and I saw what I saw about the water crisis there, and then I came back to this, and I am so privileged and so blessed in my life. I just couldn't come back here and do nothing. I couldn't live with myself. Yeah. I still feel, for years, I felt extremely guilty about coming back to South Florida and living the life I had, thinking, why was I so lucky?
Right.
And I could have been born over there, and I could be walking 5 miles a day to get water, but I was lucky that I was born in the US. My husband, you know, we had the freedoms here to have a business, to, you know, to work hard and all, but still, why me? And again, for many years, I'd come back after spending like a month or two there, and I was not okay for a while. And I finally had to make peace with myself.
Yeah.
What was that?
All right. Somebody's calling. Somebody was getting on our live and probably pushed the call button.
Yeah. So how I did that is, as I did, I kind of made peace with myself. And I said, you can be miserable, you know, every time you come back here and feel really bad about it, or just be grateful.
And do something about it.
Well, I was getting there. Yeah. So be grateful for what you have. And my advice to anyone, you know, out there who does any of this, and I tell the kids, and for a long time I would tell the kids, I said, listen, first of all, you don't need a lot of money to help someone else. It can be as simple as you're at the bus stop and you're sitting there waiting for the bus or whatever, and there's a guy sitting next to you and he's homeless, or he's just acknowledge that person. Tell that person hello. Tell that woman walking across the street with that basket of groceries, that walk over to her and ask her if you can help her. Yes. And carry that groceries, or offer your seat on a bus, offer just human kindness. We all can do that for each other. It doesn't cost a thing.
Yes.
And that's what I believe when people say, what is anybody's purpose in life? You know what our purpose in life is to help each other to have a better life.
Yeah.
And if you're blessed with whatever those, maybe you're blessed with a great singing voice, and so you sing to make people happy, or you're blessed because you had a good business, and so you can give back in many ways. Or with nothing, you have nothing, but you give back with your kindness to another human being.
Yeah. I have a friend that has a nonprofit that he helps inner city kids, and his slogan is no matter how little you have something to give, you know. Perfect. And that's his motto, and that's exactly right. I mean, empathy is free. Yes. You know, kindness is free, and it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be a big check. It doesn't have to be any money at all. Money doesn't have anything to do with it.
Exactly. Or even offer your time.
Exactly. Right.
Offer a little bit of
what you guys are doing right now, offering your time and your expertise and your knowledge to others who want to start a business. No. You guys have been there. You know the pitfalls. You know some of those mistakes, and you can share that with someone now, so they don't make the same mistakes.
Yeah. No, Joanne, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for caring, number one, for being here with us today and sharing your story, sharing your business story. You've given us some key principles along this interview that I think a lot of people out there that are getting started or already in business or very successful can take away. And I think the reason you and your husband had success because you believe in those things. You believe in treating people right. You believe in being nice. You believe in failing to learn. You believe in trying again. And you believe in sacrificing, because you've told us about the sacrifices you had to make along the way to be successful. So, you know, every single part of this interview has been filled with golden nuggets that you've kind of dropped along the way. And it's amazing that now this foundation that you started with your daughter, it's a living entity. You know, it's growing.
It's grown its own legs, so to speak.
Yes. And we're gonna continue to help and push, because it's such a beautiful cause. And
yeah, one thing I like, just to finish up, I wanna ask you about is Spring of Hope in the present. You know, I know you're building a permaculture center.
Yes.
You know, and the Enviroloo. Just you know, I see an amazing video. I mean, go to Spring of Hope, go to their Facebook page, and you see the progress of the permaculture center. But just talk very quickly about what is the permaculture center and what is the goal with that permaculture center.
Okay, so what we found was, and I told you this in the beginning also, when we put the water in, gardens were just kind of a natural, you know, thing to go into with it. And so permaculture basically it's organic gardening, and it's permaculture meaning that what is in that particular area that you live. So for example, if you're in an area that doesn't get much water, you're not going to grow vegetables that require a lot of water. So permaculture is basically using the land for what that land can be useful for. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the permaculture center that we started building, and I wish we had a little video we could show of it, because it is just really cool. But if you go to, you'll post it on video. Yeah, we have it on Facebook. Yeah, so Spring of Hope has a Spring of Hope, not Spring of Hope. That's really important. Put the A in. A Spring of Hope has a Facebook page, and we've posted some really cool pictures of this. And what we're doing there, we're building it. We're doing rammed earth, and I don't know if anybody's familiar with rammed earth, but what we're taking is the sand that's already there on the property that we got, and we're making the walls out of it. Actually, what they do is they take the sand and they mix it with kind of a polymer to hold it together, and they put it through these big, you guys think this is cool, put through these big steel panels, and they push it together, and it makes the walls. And what's cool about the rammed earth is in the summertime, it keeps it cool. And in the wintertime, it keeps it warm. So we don't need air conditioning. We don't need heaters. The buildings will basically regulate their own temperatures.
The walls of the indigenous people in Ecuador are made with that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And in fact, just a fun fact, in downtown Quito, which is the capital, the oldest homes, the walls are literally like, you know, a meter thick,
yeah, like
which is rammed dirt with mud, you know.
Right.
So
that's very cool. So the center itself will be Spring of Hope headquarters. There's really 3 buildings there. The building we just completed is an outdoor classroom, again done in Ramtech. And what happens there is we do 4 permaculture classes a year. We invite all our schools, and we invite also the community. Right now, the other thing that branched out from us is home gardens. So we have a really great guy. His name is Trigive. And Trigive our guests have called him an angel on earth, and he truly is. And this guy, I wish he was here. So we'll do this again. You know what we'll do? We'll do this again when I'm in South Africa next July.
Yes, please.
You're going to interview Trigive. You've got, yeah. We'll bring Lynette in too.
Yep.
And we'll do this again, and you'll hear their stories. Anyway, so Trigive is our permaculture educator. Oh, and Lynette. So Lynette, that principal of that first school that gave up that land for, she also works with a Spring of Hope now. She ended up hiring a couple years ago, and she runs our permaculture center. So we're still in the building phase. We should be done in the next couple of months. And so our offices will be held there, and these classes will be held there. Like I said, we do 4 classes a year in that outdoor classroom. Our indoor, so our building, the main building, what we're going to do there is we've been partnering with Junior Achievement, and we're doing these, and you guys are going to love this. We're doing entrepreneurial classes for kids.
Oh, that's awesome.
Love it.
So we've been doing it now at a high school and at a primary school. And we just had our first kind of graduating class. The kids from that primary school went into the high school to do this. And we contacted Junior Achievement because we're, one of my board members and I are affiliated with them here in Coconut Creek. Mm-hmm. They have their offices here. And so we knew about them and we knew the program. And the program is really cool because it does teach kids life skills. So it teaches kids, you know, you got to go to work, you get a paycheck, and now you got to pay your bills. So, and most kids don't know that. I know when my daughter went off to college, she didn't even know how to write a check.
Right.
You know, really? I mean, like, we don't teach that to our kids. It's like, so like,
what's a mortgage, Mom? When we went to college, or when I went to college, came to Mexico first, and then came to the U.S. the year after. I was clueless. I didn't know how to do my laundry. Right? I didn't know how to wash dishes. I didn't know any of this. So I'm like, you know, the hardest year of my life probably was the year that I left mom, right? The year that I left living at home and having things done for me. But in retrospective, it was the best year as well because it allowed me to fly the coop and spread my wings and do things on my own.
Yeah.
Yep, and nowadays really cool. I think that's a big thing that's lacking from you know, parenting and kids, that we're not letting our kids go fly. You know, we're even as adults we're still helping them and giving them things, and especially wealthy families, you know, buying them a BMW and it completely takes out their perspective, their even their self-esteem many times, you know, with all these things on the news about people paying coaches to bribing coaches to get into college.
Paying to get your kids into a decent college.
Think about what you're affecting to your kids.
Like how, you know, and that was, and as you say that, that's interesting because I think back to that you know, that first trip when we came back home. You know, I thought about it like, what if Brittany wanted to do this, you know, well project, and I thought, you know, I could just write that check for $10,000. That was nothing for me back then, right? Mm-hmm. I teach my daughter that mommy has money and she can buy whatever she wants. That was not the lesson I wanted her to learn.
Yeah.
And it was not, and again, as the Spring of Hope started growing, the kids ran it. I wanted them to understand that nothing comes easy in life.
Yeah. Anything
worthwhile is work.
Yeah.
And I wanted her, and I think she did learn that early on. She's actually, so I'm going to say she's actually now, she's a student, she's a PhD student at Berkeley.
Nice.
Yeah. And she, her project is in Ethiopia. So yeah, that happened from South Africa.
And Ricardo has told me a little bit about the project. You want to share with us what the project is?
Yeah.
Yes. And I don't know, you know, maybe one day you'll interview her on her project.
We'd love to.
Yeah, you should, because it's yeah, I think we'll talk to her about that because that would be great. So, and what she's doing there is she's been going there now for, I think it's now 4 years in a row, and it's a tough place to be. Ethiopia is a tough country.
Yeah.
You know, it's not South Africa by no means, but her passion is there, and her project is about, and I don't know enough, and I'm going to sound really, you know, hopefully I'm not saying it wrong, but she's working with the kids that are, you know, the tech industry there, and startups, you know, tech startups there.
Yeah.
And, you know, and they also have, you know, a lot of these kids are also, you know, they have people that they're talking to in Silicon Valley, you know, getting some advice and things there. So she's, and it's in the agricultural sector too, because most of Ethiopia is, you know, most of their industry is agriculture. So it's really kind of cool. I think something like 60% of the population of Ethiopia is under the age of 45. And I think that was probably from the famine in the 80s.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of young people there, and a very interesting country. I was there a few years ago, and I'm going to go back.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but yeah, well, I'm not going to say much about it because maybe she'll come on with you guys one day and tell you. I think she'd probably love to tell you all about her project there.
No, we'd love to interview her. Hey, Joanne, I want to thank you because this has been amazing, and I know that a lot of people are going to watch this and love the foundation, the mission, the vision, the goals that you have. And I mean, for nonprofits that watch this and learn, you know, your journey and what you've done in your business acumen. I mean, what you've shared with us has added value to me. And I want to thank you for that. Just as a goodbye, what would you give as advice to
okay, well, that's what I was
all
just going
people
to say.
here.
So if there's people out there and they're listening to this and they do want to start a nonprofit and they have a passion in their heart and they want to do something, and I'd be more than happy to talk to them about how to start a nonprofit and,
Thank you.
Hopefully avoid some of the pitfalls, that I did, when we started out. But, and the other thing, advice I say to people is, if you can find something you love to do and somebody actually pays you to do it, boy, you're ahead of the game.
Yeah.
You don't need a lot of money.
Follow your passion.
Follow your passion. Yeah. So
Yeah.
people can.
Yeah,
take that
and to say goodbye, Joanne, I mean, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you because you've given me way more than I've given you.
No, I don't think so. No, you're wrong. You're wrong.
It fills my heart. Sometimes actually somebody came to me after the fundraiser and told me, my heart is full. Thank you. And just the fact that means so much to people, and it's all comes from the heart, and it comes from love and just being able to contribute to such a good cause. I've told you before, I'm gonna earn my way to South Africa to see this.
He's got to come.
Schools,
Yeah, he's coming.
And I'm gonna keep committing to it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I'm sending you a virtual hug from here too.
A virtual hug to you. Thank you.
And hopefully I can give you one in person very soon.
Let's do this every week. This is fun.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, thanks so much. Blessing your way, and this has been awesome. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Have a wonderful day.
All right.
You too.
Go fix that water thing now.
Yeah, we're gonna